Happy winter holidays and welcome to Pondering the Orb. I'm Jay Reckward, the Wandering Fantasy author, and this is our third annual Yuletide special. So grab a cup of tea, a plate of sweets, and let's sit back while we read from A Wizard of Earthea from one of my favorite authors, Ursula K. Le Guin. As we do every Yule, we sample a chapter from Ursula K. Le Guin's fantasy classic 1968's A Wizard of Earthea. Let's read. A Wizard of Earthea by Ursula K. Le Guin. Chapter 3. The School for Wizards. Ged slept that night aboard Shadow, and early in the morning parted with those first sea comrades of his, they shouting good wishes cheerily after him as he went up the docks. The town of Thwill is not large, its high houses huddling close over the few steep, narrow streets. To Ged, however, it seemed a city, and not knowing where to go, he asked the first townsman of Thwill he met where he would find the warder of the school on Roke. The man looked at him sidelong a while and said, "The wise don't need to ask, the fool asks in vain," and so went on along the street. Ged went uphill until he came out into a square, rimmed on three sides by the houses with their sharp slate roofs, and on the fourth side by a wall on the high building, whose few small windows were higher than the chimney-tops of the houses. A fort or a castle, it seemed, built of mighty grey blocks of stone. In the square beneath it market booths were set up, and there were some coming and going of people. Ged asked his questions to an old woman with a basket of mussels, and she replied, "You cannot always find the warder where he is, but sometimes you find him where he is not," and went on crying her mussels to sell. In the great building, near one corner, there was a mean little door of wood. Ged went to this and knocked loud. To the old man who opened, he said, "I bear a letter from the mage Ogian of Gaunt to the warder of the school on this island. I want to find the warder, and I will not hear more riddles and scoffing." "This is the school," the old man said mildly. "I am the doorkeeper. Enter if you can." Ged stepped forward. It seemed to him that he had passed through the doorway. Yet he stood outside on the pavement where he had stood before. Once more he stepped forward, and once more he remained standing outside the door. The doorkeeper, inside, watched him with mild eyes. Ged was not so much baffled as angry, for this seemed like a further mockery to him. With voice in hand he made the opening spell which his aunt had taught him long ago. It was the prize among her stocks of spells, and he wove it well now. But it was only a witch's charm, and the power that held this doorway was not moved at all. When that failed, Ged stood a long while there on the pavement. At last he looked at the old man who waited inside. "I cannot enter," he said unwillingly, "unless you help me." The doorkeeper answered, "Say your name." Again Ged stood still a while, for a man never speaks his own name aloud until more of his life's safety is at stake. "I am Ged," he said aloud. Stepping forward, then he entered the open doorway. Yet it seemed to him as though the light was behind him. A shadow followed him in at his heels. He also saw as he turned that the doorway through which he had come through was not plain wood as he had thought, but ivory without joint or seam. It was cut, as he later knew, from the tooth of the great dragon. The door that the old man closed behind him was one of polished horn, through which daylight shone dimly, and on its inner face was carved the thousand-leafed tree. "Welcome to this house, lad," the doorkeeper said, and without saying more led him through halls and corridors to an open court far inside the walls of the building. The court was partly paved with stone, but was roofless, and on a grass plot a fountain played under young trees in the sunlight. There Ged waited alone some while. He stood still, and his heart beat hard, for it seemed to him he felt presences and powers at work unseen about him here, and he knew this place was built not only of stone, but of magic stronger than stone. He stood in the innermost room of the House of the Wise, and it was open to the sky. Then suddenly he was aware of a man clothed in white who watched him through the falling water of the fountain. As their eyes met, A bird sang aloud in the branches of the tree. In that moment Ged understood the singing of the bird, and the language of the water falling in the basin of the fountain, and the shape of the clouds, and the beginning of the end of the wind that stirred the leaves. It seemed to him that himself was a word spoken by the sunlight. Then that moment passed, and he and the world were as before, or almost as before. He fell forward to kneel before the Archmage, holding him out the letter written by Guin. The Archmage Nimmerel, warder of Roke, was an old man, older, it was said, than any man then living. His voice quavered like the bird's voice when he spoke, welcoming Ged kindly. His hair and beard and robe were white, and he seemed as if all darkness and heaviness had been leached out of him by the slow usage of the years, leaving him white and worn as driftwood that has been a century adrift. "My eyes are old. I cannot read what your master writes," he said in his quavering voice. "Read me the letter, lad." So Ged made out and read aloud the writing, which was in Hardic runes. It said no more than this: "Lord Nimmerel, I send you one who will be the greatest of the wizards of Gaunt, if the wind blow true." This was not signed, not with Ogien's true name, which Ged had never learned, but with Ogien's rune, the closed mouth. "He who holds the earthquake on a leash has sent you, for which be doubly welcome. Young Ogien was dear to me when he came here from Gaunt. Now tell me of the seas, and portents of your voyage, lad." "A fair passage, lord, but for the storm yesterday." "What ship brought you here?" "Shadow, trading from the Andrades." "Whose will sent you here?" "My own." The Archmage looked at Ged and looked away, and began to speak in a tongue that Ged did not understand, mumbling his will an old man whose wits go wandering among the years and islands. Yet in among his mumbling there were words of what the bird had sung, and what the water had said falling. He was not laying a spell, yet there was power in his voice that moved Ged's mind, so that the boy was bewildered, and for an instant seemed to behold himself standing in a strange, vast desert place, alone among shadows. Yet all along he was in the sunlit court, hearing the fountain fall. A great black bird, a raven of Osgil, came walking over the stone terrace in the grass. It came to the hem of the Archmage's robe, and stood there all black with its dagger beak and eyes like pebbles, staring sidelong at Ged. It pecked 3 times on the white staff Nimmerel leaned on, and the old wizard ceased his muttering, and smiled. "Run and play, lad," he said at last to a little child. Ged knelt again on one knee to him. When he rose, the Archmage was gone. Only the raven stood eyeing him, its beak outstretched as if to peck the vanished staff. It spoke, and what Ged guessed was the speech of Osgil. "Turn on Usbuk," it said, croaking. "Turn on Usbuk, or—" And it strutted off as it had come. Ged turned to leave the courtyard, wondering where he should go. Under the archway he was met by a tall youth who greeted him very courteously, bowing his head. "I am called Jasper, Inuit son of the domain of Eog on Havanor Isle. I am at your service today to show you about the great house and answer your questions as I can. How should I call you, sir?" Now it seemed to Ged, a mountain villager who had never been among the sons of rich merchants and noblemen, that this fellow was scoffing at him with his service and his sir and his bowing and scraping. He answered shortly, "Sparrowhawk, they call me."
We have a tradition on Pondering the Orb of also reading from Tolkien's Letters to Father Christmas. These were written by Tolkien to his children throughout the 1920s and 30s. Taking on the role of either Father Christmas or his stalwart friend, P. Bear, these letters show the kindness and love that sits at the center of the professor's greatest works. Let's read one.
Cliff House, top of the world, near the North Pole. Christmas, 1925. My dear boys, I'm dreadfully busy this year. It makes my hand more shaky than ever when I think of it. And not very rich. In fact, awful things have been happening, and some of the presents have gotten spoiled, and I haven't gotten the North Polar Bear to help me, and I've had to move house just before Christmas. So you can imagine what a state everything is in, and you will see why I have a new address, and why I can only write one letter between you both. It all happened like this. One very windy day last November, my hood blew off and went and struck the top of the North Pole. I told him not to, but the North Polar Bear climbed to the thin top to get it down, and he did. The pole broke in the middle and fell on the roof of my house, and the North Polar Bear fell through the hole it made into the dining room with my hood over his nose, and all the snow fell off the roof into the house and melted and put out all the fires and ran down into the cellars, where I was collecting this year's presents, and the North Polar Bear's leg got broken. He is well again now, but I was so cross with him he says he won't help me again. I expect his temper is hurt, and will be mended by next Christmas. I send you a picture of the accident and my new house on the cliffs above the North Pole, with beautiful cellars in the cliffs. If John can't read my shaky writing, 1,925 years old, he must get his father to. When is Michael going to learn to read, and write his own letters to me? Lots of love to you both and Christopher, whose name is rather like mine. That's all. Goodbye. Father Christmas. P.S. Father Christmas was in a great hurry. Told me to put in one of his magic wishing crackers. As you pull, wish, and see if it doesn't come true. Excuse thick writing, I have a fat paw. I help Father Christmas with his packing. I live with him. I am the Great Polar Bear.
'Tis the season, and I've dug out a deep cut from one of the preeminent Tolkien metal bands. All the way from Finland and playing from their 2002 debut, Where Shadows Lie, this is Battlelore with Journey to Undying Lands. But looking for something to sip while you listen? For fans of my Sword and Sorcery series, Spy Counter Killer, I've partnered with the Viridian Tea Company to create a tea you can enjoy at home. Mina's blend is a wonderful mix of rich black currants, fine Assam, and savory chicory. Chewy, warm, and strongly flavored, it is perfect for dark winter nights. Check out the blend and the books in the links below. Now to Battlelore. Not only is this year's Synthwave selection a free track you can download off of Downtown Binary's Bandcamp, it is a perfect track for drinking tea and reading great fantasy thrillers featuring spies, dragons, and tea times. This UK synth sorcerer has joined with the present sound to bring us a spell for the winter moon. This 2024 track is called Luna. And with that wonderful call to the moon, let's end our Yuletide special. Thank you so much for stopping by this chilly evening, and I'll see you again in the spring. Remember to pick up some of Mina's blend from Viridian Tea Company, and pick up Spy Counter Killer in the links in the description below. And please follow all of our great musical acts. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Joyful Kwanzaa, and to my many wolves out there, a Happy Yule. The light will come again.